Good morning, everyone. Glad you're here. What can I do for you? Questions?
Mayor, the new tax figures came out, and we're still looking at them, but basically they're pretty close to what the estimates that came out last week.
Okay.
So presuming that that's the case and that the city has seen a pretty healthy rise, what's your response to that?
Well, you know, the projection was 4.42% increase in property values. And hopefully it'll be that and maybe a little more. And, you know, we're certainly happy about it. It certainly shows an uptick in the value of the properties in the city, but it certainly doesn't get us out of our tight budget time. We're still going to have a tight budget year. We still have some gaps to make up. That gap has gone down to about $1.5 million, but we see that as doable. We're going to figure that out. But you know, we can't go around spending money indiscriminately because it's just not there.
Is it your projection and goal that you will eliminate the gap?
Oh, absolutely. We have to eliminate the gap, and we want to keep the millage rate right where it is. And I also want to pay back the money we borrowed from the reserves last year. So to put, I think it was about $2.5 million, we'll put that back into the reserves.
You think you can do all of that?
I think so. We, you know, just a little background on our budget. We have about a $170 million operating budget. Of that $170 million, only about $65 million actually comes in from property taxes. So we're only covering with property taxes $65 million of our $170 million operating budget. Our police and fire budgets together are $86 million. So property taxes don't even pay for all of the police and fire. And, you know, every day we hear about how we need more code officers, we need more police officers, you know, we need more people to maintain our parks, and on and on and on. And, you know, that we're just not going to happen. We're not in a budget situation where we can make all of those dreams come true.
What were your thoughts about Jeff Speck's presentation today? I believe he's going to be giving a written report in a couple of weeks, so that probably would be when you were making most of your observations, but he did cover a lot of ground yesterday.
He sure did.
Were there some thoughts that you'd like to share?
I thought he did a terrific job. I thought his recommendations were really very well substantiated in terms of the research that he's done and you know, the information that he has at his fingertips. I pretty much knew what most of the recommendations would be because having talked with him after he'd spent some time with us. So there really were no surprises there. And I think some of them are very implementable. So we'll put a cross-functional group of people together to take a look at his report and come up with an implementation plan. And obviously we'll hit the low-hanging fruit first. And one of the things we can get done within the purview of the city. And then, you know, there are other things that will take collaboration with the county and the state.
On the closing clematis, he didn't necessarily recommend it.
No, and your headline said Jeff Spect recommends something in closing streets. He didn't really talk about closing streets.
I don't read the headlines.
I know. That's the sad part, though.
But he didn't recommend it. But he didn't dismiss it. He just said usually it fails, and if you're going to do it, he suggested doing it like just drag some planners out and see how that goes. Is that something that you would completely rule out? Is it something you might want to try? You know, see what happens?
Well, you know, I have been talking about a pedestrian clematis for a while, at least the 100 and 200 block. There's people who are for it and people who are against it, and understanding that, according to him, 98% of the time those pedestrian malls fail. Now, I've been to some of the ones that have succeeded, and they're great. I am certainly willing to give it a shot, and we're beginning to do that with these little parklets that the DDA is going to start using. So I think once we try the parklets and see how they work, we do close the street fairly often, but maybe on a Sunday to close the street and see what happens with that. So, and I think looking at trying it at little or no expense is a way to go, just to see how it works.
Maybe the most intriguing one was this idea of narrowing Flagler. This imagery he created where Flagler is almost like this DMZ that's just it's like a wall that's keeping people from the waterfront. How'd you feel about that one?
I think he's right on target with that, although I think there will be a very heated discussion as to whether or not that is something we should do.
A lot of people are not going to want. They drive Flagler and they're going to think it's.
They think it'll slow them down. His data is very strong that narrowing roads does not slow down traffic. I mean, it slows traffic down. It doesn't increase congestion. But there are lots of folks who travel Flagler for business or for whatever, who I think would have a problem. I mean, we had a recommendation to lower the speed limit, and we didn't do that because of all the pushback we got. So I think that there will be heated discussion around that if we get to the point where we are talking about it. But it certainly makes sense to me. And when you look at the traffic counts are very low. We don't need that wide thoroughfare to accommodate the low traffic counts.
It's kind of similar to, I mean, you think of FDR Drive in New York or Storrow Drive in Boston or up in Chicago. It really is a barrier from the people in the city to get to the waterfront. So it's slowing people down and allowing some parking there. Has there ever been any discussion about putting any restaurants or things on the water? I mean, we seem to have no trouble putting a Captain Morgan's float there, and the world didn't come to an end. It'd be nice to have a floating restaurant or something.
I would love to have a restaurant on the water. Just looking for someone who wants to develop it. There's issues because we have to go to the state probably to talk about the use of being able to put a restaurant right on the water. But I think it's a great idea.
Mayor, I got an email on this last night. I have not checked it at the courthouse yet, but I'm guessing it's legit. There's been a pro se, without lawyers, I guess, challenge to Rybovich, which now makes you 3 for 3, because you had the challenge to the chapel,
right.
You had the challenge to the Palm Harbor Marina, and a legal challenge now to Rybovich. So basically, the last 3 major developments that you guys voted on, you've got various legal challenges in one form or another. Any kind of reaction to that, and B, do you think that's going to affect your decision making, on these things, or are these just part of the nature of doing business, so to speak?
Well, I briefly looked at the filing, the pro se filing. It sure looks like a lawyer wrote it to me. So, I'd be shocked if that were the case for real. But it's definitely a challenge to Rybovich. And,
But all 3 of them are specifically challenging your growth votes and your comprehensive plan, and whether you guys are violating your own rules.
right. And of course, we don't believe we are violating our own rules, and they're going to challenge that. But, it's hard. Change is difficult. There are lots of people who would like to keep the city a sleepy little town, and I appreciate that. But I just talked to you a minute ago about the budget. And, if you want services, then we have to increase tax dollars somehow. And nobody wants their tax dollar raised. But every commission meeting, there are people who come and speak to the commission about something they want. A new clubhouse at the golf club. Streets are a mess. They need to be repaved. Absolutely. Where is that money going to come from? And unless and until we expand our tax base, we're not going to be able to do those things. New bathrooms at Gaines Park, new children's toys to climb on in the park. all of that costs money, and how will that be paid for?
But you're comfortable that all of these legal challenges will be, that you'll survive all these legal challenges as far as this, that are specifically alleging that you're not following your own rules?
Well, I'm never comfortable when it comes to dealing with courts and putting decision-making in somebody's hands like that. But, we have very excellent planners who are very knowledgeable, and, I believe that we've done what we needed to do and could do within the comprehensive plan.
So you think that all three will be, you'll survive all
We'll
three?
see.
But you are comfortable, though, that you've followed your own rules?
Yes. Hello.
Hi, Mayor, how are you? Sorry
Good.
for being late.
Yeah, it's okay. Welcome.
Perhaps you've already addressed this, but we were interested in the walkability study and some of those suggestions, for example, narrowing Flagler Drive. What's your immediate reaction?
Well, we did talk about it briefly, and my immediate reaction is that I think it's something really good to look into. Personally, I like the idea, but I also know that there will be people who will not like the idea. And, as in any public forum, we'll listen to what people have to say and make some decisions based on good input and data. Jeff Spect had a lot of good data. The number of cars on Flagler Drive are very small, and a narrower Flagler Drive can easily accommodate the traffic that's on Flagler Drive. But people use that for going to work and getting places, and I'm sure that those folks will be worried about congestion and being slowed down. So we'll have to take into account all the pros and cons.
How important do you think the walkability idea is just in general for the city's continuing to thrive?
I think it's huge, and that's why we have wanted to be a part of the walkability study. I read Jeff Speck's book, and that's how I started to get interested in it. And, our city is a very walkable city already, but it could be better. And that's what attracts people to cities. I mean, think about your favorite cities. My favorite cities, New York, Chicago, all very, very walkable, and that's what makes a great city.
Thank you.
Yeah. Other questions?
Anything on 45th Street?
No.
City attorney hiring?
No, not yet. Soon.
The commission ratified your selection of Chief Cumberland?
Yep.
So he's off and running, so to
Yes.
speak. And how much are you going to expedite this hiring of officers? Because I think residents would be pretty surprised to find out that you have positions, you have the money for them, and I know you explained it last week, but they're like, why don't you get these guys on the street already?
Yeah, and that's what we want to do. But as I said, it's a long process, and we're very selective. And we're doing all kinds of outreach to try and get people to apply. Facebook, Twitter, all kinds of ways to attract young people into this profession. But it's a very rigorous screening process. And I think, I understand that the public would want to get people out on the street, but I know they want the best people out on the street, and that's what we're looking for.
Anything else?
Just as far as the walkability study, do you have a timeline for when you would be making any decisions?
We're going to get the report in probably a month, the full report, and then, we'll probably take a few months to review it and make some recommendations. I also want to clarify the funding. The cost of that analysis was $50,000. The city only paid a quarter of that. The rest of the money was paid by the DDA and the CRA. So some of the news stations have said that the city paid $50,000, but that's not accurate.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.